Welcome to Rauta's Dual Reviews. This time I have one older release by the band from 2021 and one of 2022. So both new and bit older, not that old is in fact in place when we're talking about less than a year old release. Now first of all, when I hear name Fiat Nox, it always brings this car brand to my mind, which I guess is a little bit of an odd start for a black metal band or black metal band review, but there it goes. I'm not probably the only one figuring out one that. Anyway, that is as far as I know, a Latin name, which then again is not so surprising when we're talking about black metal, even though this one is from Germany. So, good releases by this rather new band, founded as late as 2016, and the first few years were a little bit slow or so with the band, but then it really started when the band started doing their first full album in 2021. That was followed by a first EP or MCD in later 2021, and then this new one here in 2022. So 3 releases in less than a year. What could go wrong with that? Now, first let's take a look at this full-length album. This is the one that came out in spring 2021, called, I'll show you in a little bit, The Archive of Nightmares. This is modern ways of black metal, and I can't emphasize that too much because most of them, when people think about old school black metal, I guess, they go all the way to 1980s, thinking about the very originators of the genre. But more often it seems people are also talking about early 1990s black metal, the so-called second wave of black metal when we're talking about old school stuff. And given that this whole second wave has pretty much lasted for 30 years, I mean, there are lots of bands who still do that kind of stuff, and they don't feel necessarily so retro-ish, if you take my drift here. But more often people just consider them like, yeah, that's just black metal. But as it has been case for the past few years now, so-called newer wave of black metal, I usually like to call them just third wave to make this difference, to separate them from the more or less 90s or even early 2000 bands. And this third wave of a black metal is sometimes quite a bit of different. I mean, of course you have similar kind of patterns and riffs and all that stuff, but there are also quite a bit of differences. So here we have Demanifestation, also known as Hymns of Destruction and Nothingness. And this is the 3-song EP, which almost, and again, is almost full album with 30 minutes and 10 some. So as I was saying, this third wave of a black metal is somewhat different, even though there are lots of similarities. And it's hard sometimes to draw the line between these two waves, if you will. That is, more dissonant kind of stuff is present, but not exactly to be called post-black metal and all that stuff. But definitely going forward from that 1990s, early or late 90s kind of a stuff, when things were very much evolving year by year and different kind of routines and styles were designed and all that stuff. So Fiat Nox is definitely on the modern side of black metal. Whether you want to call it third wave or just something different, I don't really care. This is just my interpretation of the whole band here. But now that we are here with the band's Metal Archive site, well, quick recap. You see the demo 2016, then a lot of silence, and then boom, 3 releases in a very short time span. Now, the Archive of Nightmares pretty much does what I just described. Modern black metal with melodies, a little bit flirting with death metal, not too much, but still. There is some kind of a level of behemotism right there in place. That is some kind of a almost clean vocals, kind of spoken, yelled, grunting parts, which then again go hand in hand with this rather lengthy songwriting. I mean, there are a couple of songs which are more than 10 minutes long, and that is leading to the very basic problem with the band. Some people are probably gonna like it a lot, But some people like me, who are maybe more old school, have a problem when there is no clear song structures, especially with the lengthier ones. I mean, the basic rock and roll pattern, which is also the basic heavy metal pattern, is very simple. You have a couple of riffs, maybe more than two, but you get the idea. And then you have these chorus parts, and then you kind of go back to the very basic riffs and repeat the chorus parts maybe a couple of times, and then you're done with it. Usually you get away with like 3 to 5, 6 minutes, and then boom, you're out there. You might have 10 riffs, you might have 3 riffs, doesn't really matter, but there's certain kind of repetition what is kind of essential to people to, figure out. We're rather simple animals, and when you go beyond that, usually you get the kind of a sticker saying progressive, boom, progressive rock, boom, progressive metal and all that stuff. Now, black metal isn't exactly known for its technicalities compared to, say, more technical death metal or progressive elements like the progressive rock or metal. But some bands kind of want to defy that, and it's okay by all means. That also means it's kind of hard to get the level of catchiness or to memorability, the able to brain really figure out like what's the going on here, what's the pattern, what's the catch. And sometimes there is no catch. Songs that just kind of keep evolving, and that's where the kind of a post-metallic, post-rocky elements almost come into play, like waving their hands and like, hey, we're gonna just take it all from here, you can go home, you old school boomer rock and roll and metal mentality. And that's where the dividing line comes into play. Some people are like, okay, I'm gonna see where this new road leads. And some people are like, nope, not going to touch anything that sounds post or modern because it's too different for me. And I'm gonna repeat myself here and saying, yeah, that's one of the problems with Fiat Nox. That's also one of the possibilities, like one of the good things in this kind of music. Some people like the music to be more complex, leading towards different eras and places like never before. Like it's like going beyond the boundaries of typical black metal. And also it flirts, but isn't as dissonant as, the Icelandic type of black metal, which I would also box in with the so-called third wave. So definitely something different than what was going on early in the 90s. Sometimes complex, sometimes, just progressive, but, going into different ways than so many bands. Melodies are present mostly with rather fast tempo. This is not one of those bands that kind of slow down too much, but there are mid-tempo parts, and that's pretty okay. Some parts are definitely kind of a catchy and memorable, the kind of a melodies, but there could be even more of that. This is just my opinion. Now, I didn't get this in Contemptuous Defiance for review, but I listened to it during the fall when it came out as a digital promo, and it is pretty much fitting the gap between these two. But if the debut album was flirting with death metal, now this is more like they are dating. So once again, these tracks are very, very long, from 9 minutes to almost 11 minutes. And you also have this very, very modern take on black metal, but now with more death metal parts. And this is not so much like death metal riffs, but they are present there, but more how the growly vocals are taking more place. It's not like it's dominating here. This is still mostly black metal. I would say roughly some 80-85% of black metal, and the rest is that kind of a modern death metal. But it's definitely right there. And once again, this could be very much be, speaking to people who like later era Behemoth, or even the death metal era Behemoth, but maybe not so much. So there is definitely that. I think there is audience for this kind of black metal, but it's not probably people in their 40s or 50s who, grew up with old school bands. Not necessarily with, Bathory or early Sodom or Celtic Frost or, Venom, but also the people who got their formative years with the Norwegian and Finnish and Swedish kind of a black metal early to late 90s. And by the time of 2000s, the people started to say, yeah, this is getting way too modern, or this is becoming a kind of a copycat thing. But people who into that era alone might feel this is way too modern for them. So this is not so much as a warning, but more like a sign like, hey, maybe you need to know this, because this is not black metal for everybody. But at least Fiat Nox is not sounding like everybody else in the business. So they have their own thing going on. I mean, maybe after the next album they will be honing their style even further. Who knows? It's rather interesting, but I cannot say I'm totally like super into this kind of stuff. I would say both of these releases are definitely decent, but not great. Production wise, pretty solid. Vocals, quite alright. I don't think that much Rauta vocals need to be in place, even though I'm a death metal fanatic as well. But I'm just saying the forte of the band is definitely with the more black metalish side. So there it is. Now if you want to take a look at the band's music, go follow the links and give yourself a listen with these. And who knows, maybe they are right up your alley. I wouldn't know. It's all up to individual taste. But good luck with trying out that, and I hope you enjoy it. Take care and bye bye.